and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Hannah Wallace and we're here at Cybos 2019 in London. Kindly joining me now in the studio is Stella Clarke, CMO of Murex, and we're going to be talking about Libor reform. Hello Stella, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi Anna, thank you for having me here.
Now the first thing I want to talk to you about is your opening session today, the title of which was Libor and Game. So to start off, can you tell us a bit about what was covered?
Following the financial crisis in 2008, regulators, the Basel Committee and regulatory bodies have been looking at reforming Libor and calling for the end of Libor. There were two main reasons behind. First, the risk of manipulation of the rate that was clearly due to its determination process. And second, is lack of relevance to support a market of over 370 trillion US dollar of assets with dwindling underlying transactions that did not reflect the reality of the market. Over the last 2 years, a lot of progress has been made. First, alternate reference rate have been defined. First with the SOFR in the US that first started to publish in April 2008, and soon with the Hester that will start publication next month for the Euro market. There are two things that this rate are bringing. First, they are going to be administered directly by central bank, where Libor used to be administered by private sector. Second, they are supposed to be more transparent, supported by overnight market, repo market, and a large amount of transactions.
All right, well, following on from that quite nicely then, what are some of the challenges associated with the move away from such an important standard? And what would be the next steps capital markets need to take to transition with a world without Libor?
With the alternate reference rate being now defined, we are quickly marching towards a deadline, and that's basically 1st of January 2022. So the first challenge that the industry is facing is adoption. While the rates are defined, instruments and liquidity still need to be developed and adopted by market participants. At this stage, and if we look at SOFR for example, liquidity has picked up on the short-term transaction, but we are still a long way for full adoption, in particular on the longer-term transaction. So clearly it's the same in Europe. We are going to start trading Hester next month, but the swap market needs to build. The future of Euribor is still not defined. What's going to happen? Do we going to have term rates or not? So all these questions need to be answered, and the market need to start using the benchmark for full adoption to arrive. The second is a transition. There is still a lot of discussion on the market on how we will transition from the old benchmark to the new benchmark. There have been working groups involved, like the ARC in the US, ISDA as well for the derivative market, but at this stage there is not really a consensus on the mechanism that will allow the fallback from one rate to another. So there is a risk right now, if we look at the state of the discussion, that there will be differences between the way clear derivative will be treated compared to non-clear derivative. Similarly, for loan product and securitized products, the rules are different. So we need as an industry to come to a common solution to be able to really start moving and transition from 2022. And finally, we need to really better assess the risk associated with the transition. For example, switching from the Libor with a pretty stable rate to an overnight index with a lot of volatility, as SOFR proved last week with very strong volatility intraday. We need to be able to manage this risk better as an industry and understand them along all the processes: trading, risk management, P&L, basis risk, etc.
All right, and in the context of Libor reform, would you say technology is an enabler, or is it seen more as a hurdle to transformation?
Transition to the new rates and new benchmark is really an undertaking. We are talking about a massive market. I mentioned it earlier, 370 trillion US dollar of assets. So clearly automation is key. First, sell side, buy side, any player needs to be able to trade, process and risk manage these new benchmarks that require fundamental changes in their technology platform. Second, we need to be able to identify where is the risk, and we need to understand what are the contract, potential repapering, potential renegotiation across actors. All this will require automation to be successful. And last, it's about the transition itself. As I mentioned, transition mechanisms are still getting developed. We know that CCP are likely to switch to new discounting rates in 2020. This will be automated and will be a big bang. And if transition happens as a big bang, how do you manage, over a weekend, millions of transactions, that need to transition from one rate to another?
Certainly some interesting developments ahead then. Stella, thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Anna, for having me here today.